This case examines Microsoft's enterprise-wide shift from a know-it-all mindset and a Windows-centric model to a learn-it-all mindset and cloud and AI-led platforms through the assumption of Satya Nadella in the position of CEO. In terms of scale, it is a global organization with a legacy to protect, and it is important for Microsoft to maintain long-term relevance and competitiveness. From a core leadership context, this shift has enabled strategic reinvention by reshaping culture, identity, and ways of working at a massive scale. Now, the focus of this analysis in the next few slides is how leadership decisions led by Nadella shape the process, experience, and the outcomes of change under sustained uncertainty.
Let's now move on to our analytical lens and overall approach. And to frame this section, we apply several leadership and change lenses. From a Kotter perspective, leadership created strong urgency and a shared vision through consistent communication. However, rapid AI acceleration and repeated restructuring weakened long-term anchoring. The change curve shows early success in reducing resistance through empathy, inclusion, and role modeling, but a risk exists in ongoing uncertainty and frustration. Using bridges, Microsoft reframed identity toward learning and growth and guided employees through the neutral zone through empowerment and upskilling. Finally, Lewin highlights successful unfreezing but only partial refreezing as Microsoft operates in continuous adaptation. Overall, I would say the case shows that Microsoft largely applied the models mentioned before in leading its transformation.
Under Satya Nadella leadership, Microsoft went through profound strategic and cultural transformation that reshaped its business model and market position. First, he made the growth mindset the central leadership team, moving the organization from an expert-driven, internally competitive culture to one focused on learning and collaboration. Second, he decisively shifted the growth engine to Azure Cloud and subscription, even when it meant cannibalizing legacy licensing revenues. Third, success was redefined from shipping products to measurable customer outcomes and success, such as usage, adoption, and consumption. In parallel, Microsoft opened its ecosystem, embracing Linux on Azure, acquiring GitHub, supporting competitive platforms such as Apple, and forming strategic partnership, for example, OpenAI. Finally, these changes was reinforced through performance review and rewards, with Nadella setting the tone from the top through humility, empathy, and learning.
Microsoft's leadership was effective in setting direction and mobilizing change by redefining purpose and positioning culture as the primary lever for transformation. This helped employees understand why new behaviors such as collaboration, learning, and experimentation were essential for cloud and AI success. From a human perspective, leadership emphasis on empathy and role modeling reduced fear of failure and enabled people to move away from internally competitive behaviors. This supported identity, transition, and lowered visible resistance during the change. However, effectiveness was constrained in the later phases. Cultural ambition often outpaced system reinforcement, with incentives, KPIs, and governance adapting more slowly. Prolonged transformation and workforce reductions also strained trust and psychological safety, particularly around job security. While Microsoft achieved strong strategic outcomes, sustaining the transformation depends on leadership's continued ability to balance ongoing learning, accountability, and care under ongoing disruption.
Transformation journey, the change was highly successful, but not tension free. First, there was a tension between culture and systems. While Nadella's growth mindset message was powerful, for culture to last, it had to be reinforced through KPIs, rewards, governance, and leadership routines. Secondly, there was a tension between empathy and accountability. Microsoft needed psychological safety so people could learn, experiment, and also move away from internal competition. But at the same time, new products required stronger discipline, reliability, and execution. Thirdly, Microsoft had to move from control to openness. This meant letting go of their Windows centric identity and becoming more open to platforms, partnerships, and new ecosystems. While this created innovation, the legacy teams actually felt a loss of power and identity. Finally, there was also a risk around trust. Workforce reductions and the continuous restructuring could weaken the same psychological safety that made their original transformation possible. So, our insight as a team is that Microsoft's biggest risk was not whether it could change, but whether that trust could survive the continuous transformation.
At Microsoft, one leadership style is not enough, especially in cloud or AI or any IT-driven world. Leaders needs to adjust how they lead depending on the situation. When technology and risks are changing fast, adaptive leadership helps teams keep learning and improving. During uncertain times, like restructuring, servant leadership becomes important to rebuild trust and keep people engaged. At the same time, transactional leadership provides the discipline and accountability needed for security, reliability, and customer confidence. Ethical leadership ensures AI is developed responsibly, and when crisis occurs, leaders must act decisively. Ultimately, Microsoft's success depends on leaders knowing when and how to shift their leadership approach.
After reviewing the Microsoft case, there were three main leadership takeaways that stand out. Starting from the concept of leading change, which is about people, not just the process. Microsoft was able to complete this change with a great success as employees were able to understand clearly why the change mattered in a psychological safe environment, not just procedures. Secondly, sustaining change doesn't just mean locking down the process and not be able to adapt as new things come up along the change. Instead, Microsoft was able to embed learning and cross-team collaboration in order to keep people engaged while supporting long-term goals. And lastly, culture change versus system change. CEO Nadal was able to shift from know it all to learn it all culture with real changes that include rewards in order to ensure that culture shift was sustained and credible.
To conclude, Microsoft's transformation shows that leading change is not only about strategy, technology, or market timing, it is also about an identity, trust, and behavior. Nadella's leadership actually worked because he did not treat culture as a softer issue. He connected that with the urgency for change and with a clear cultural shift from know it all to learn it all as a base. He also linked this to business execution through the cloud AI and customer focused collaborations. But this case also showed us the limits of change leadership. Culture must be protected when the organization moves through restructuring, various security pressures, and continuous disruption. Otherwise, that language of empathy can start to feel disconnected from what the employees experience. So our final takeaway is simple that sustainable change requires leaders to move people forward, but not at the cost of leaving trust behind. Microsoft's story is actually therefore not a story of just successful transformation, but it's a reminder that change must be continuously led, renewed, and also humanized.
As for my individual reflection, I have learned the importance of being an authentic leader and truly listen to my team perspective, and also have learned that team alignment is another aspect that helps effective change.
This course showed me how strongly team dynamics and communication affect decisions. In the future, I want to lead with clarity and focus on building trust.
My biggest takeaway from this leadership course and the Microsoft case study is that leading change is a collective effort from everyone involved, and that it is very important that everyone knows the purpose and the impact of the change.
Microsoft case showed me leaders don't drive change by control, but by trust empowering people at every level to take ownership. I also learned that successful change is sustained not only by one-time decision, but by building right culture, mindset, and continuous learning habits.
I learned that collaboration and a growth mindset create far more impact than internal competition. This case reinforced the importance of listening, understanding different perspectives, and aligning around a clear objective. Going forward, I will apply this lesson by fostering open dialogue and encouraging learning.
Personally, this case reminded me of my own leadership journey. I have often felt the need to solve everything myself, but I am learning that real leadership is not about being the know it all. It is creating a learn it all and do it all together culture where people can disagree openly while staying respectful and still moving forward as one
As
team.
a team in this leadership course, we've learned that leading change is not just about setting direction, but also managing trust and emotions over time. In the future, we will focus as much on people as we do on strategy when leading change.